Right. Good morning, respected media community, the ANC members, and all. Today, we have one of Zimbabwe's 2023 presidential candidate, our leader, Reverend Dr. Zimbabweans. He is a Zimbabwean citizen by birth. Dr. Mzorewa earned PhD in the United States of America. He was actively involved in the Liberation War during the 60s and 70s and is still working for our freedom. He holds a post as professor at Lincoln University, PA. He is married to Dr. Susan Mzorewa, an associate professor of business in the United States of America. The couple has 4 children. Reverend Dr. Mzorewa has widely traveled to many countries, but he loves his own Zimbabwe best. The next voice you will hear is that of our own, the UNC President, Reverend Dr. Mzorewa. Please welcome him. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the esteemed citizens of Zimbabwe, I'm a concerned citizen burning to address the pressing issue that have plagued our nation in the aftermath of the recent elections. The truth is, no one can change history, but we have the choice to shape the future of our nation together, beginning today. Granted, we can learn from the past, but not at the expense of creating and charting a better future. Dwelling in the past will only delay what the future holds for us. My appeal to all stakeholders, specifically political parties, is that we come together in order to address the challenges that bedevil our beloved Zimbabwe. Rather than getting embroiled in a plethora of litigations after litigations, important as each case might be, may we focus on solving life-threatening issues such as the cholera pandemic and pressing economic issues that threaten our survival. In a democracy, individual cases must also be heard, but they should not hinder national progress or divert our attention from national priorities that beg a decisive national development agenda. This is time to utilize our collective wisdom and the value of national unity. This is the essence of this press statement. How I wish it was a Christmas holiday address, but it's not. While SADC and the AU play their advisory role, our proper role is charting the political future of our nation. Please be advised, this press statement is by no means a campaign speech. Rather, it is an appeal to the rationality and the utility of national unity, especially during a crisis. We appeal to all stakeholders, including those sitting on the fence, those inside and those outside, to be part of the resolve. In our view, national unity is not just one more political jargon. Rather, it is a politically cohesive mechanism that historically has saved nations in time of crisis. The national unity we are calling for has nothing to do with power sharing or coalition or an alliance or any such forms which have failed in Zimbabwe due mainly to avarice, corruption, and lawlessness among leadership. The spirit of national unity that we are appealing to is what makes us one sovereign state, consisting of various parts that work together for a common good. We mean parts, not political parties. We need to focus on national development, common national priorities, productivity, and peace. Of course, the normal role of the military and the police are to be assumed. Though still a teething democracy, we must still live a relatively meaningful life in Zimbabwe. Terror, fear, insecurity, and poverty do not contribute to what we desire. For clarity and benefit to our political leaders, this spirit of unity we are calling for has nothing to do with a one-party state or its political silhouette. We rejected that long ago in the mid-1980s when the late former president, Mr. Robert Mugabe, wanted to force it on us. By national unity, we mean a functional state, even under unusual conditions. But one may ask, why calling for this now? Fellow Zimbabweans, we have health care facilities that need serious attention. Countrywide, we have general infrastructure that does not serve the communities well. People are dying needless deaths due to healthcare deficiencies. We have corruption, abductions, political violence, in addition to an ailing economy, to mention a few. It will be national suicide to adopt a wait-and-see attitude for the unforeseeable future. Also, it would be sheer imprudence on the part of the citizens to count on what have proved to be empty promises couched in ambiguity. What's on the agenda then? Speaking as one of the political players who are dying to be the instrument of real change, the proposed agenda includes the following. 1, designing solutions and implementation of life-threatening infrastructure issues. 2, designing new measures to fix the economy. 3, requesting Parliament to monitor systems that are meant to ensure accountability and transparency, including the judiciary and legislative, as well as representative honorable ministers. All this is done in the context of national unity. So national unity is key to Zimbabwe's progress today. In the midst of the cholera pandemic, our failed local authorities blame the condition on the Minister of Local Government, Public Works, and National Housing, while government blames the failure on the local authorities. In the meantime, our people are dying, regardless of party affiliations. This means immediate recalibrating, and it is in the interest of President Mnangagwa to make sure the nation is safe. At the inauguration, President Mnangagwa pleaded for God's help. I think he needs it now. This tug of war is due to the fact that local authorities' management has been politicized. With all due respect, our councillors were elected based on their party logo, not necessarily their professional ability to run the local authorities. Yet local authorities are expected to be professional service providers for the community as a whole, not on party lines, as is currently the trend. For instance, current hiring of truck drivers, even street cleaners, is based on political party affiliation, not driver or cleaning skills, respectively. This trend contributes to failure by local authorities to serve the residents, because it doesn't matter what you know. If you don't belong to the particular party, you may not get a job in that area. That's what I mean politicizing the institutions. Unfortunately, given the current composition of our members of parliament, decisions are blinded by political biases. Leadership should desist from politicizing everything: economics, business, agriculture, education, healthcare, and judiciary, to mention a few. Professional systems function best when guided by their own principles, guidelines, and disciplines. Inevitably, corruption nurtured in the lack of rule of law creeps in whenever we politicize management. We urge parliamentarians to consider restructuring local authorities, since this has been a battleground for central government and local authorities. Privatizing local authority management is an alternative that would reduce corruption drastically and increase efficiency immensely. Overall, there are greater advantages in apolitical local authorities than politicized management. We have not seen collaboration between the local authority and government. At the end of this day, success of and failure of local authorities lies squarely in President Mnangagwa's office. As we say colloquially, the buck stops with him. But he wishes to see a united Zimbabwe. Where is the problem? Problem is there is a lack of unity, which is why we are advocating, this is why we are pleading with all stakeholders for unity at all costs. Let me take you back to an element of unity that has been ignored. Do you know in this country we have a part of the community that we don't see? We call them the living dead. As a spiritual nation, there are certain values we need to observe in order to be a productive, progressive, prosperous, and peaceful nation. For example, since we believe that we got our independence through spiritual guidance, have we ever dedicated a day of thanksgiving? Vakuru wedu vane chisi, musi unonzi musi wechisi, a holy day, not a holiday, but a holy day. That has very special meaning in our culture. So when we think of Thanksgiving Day, we might want to associate this with thanking all those who have worked to get to Zimbabwe where it is today. As a spiritual nation, we realize that our lives are intricately inseparable from the unnamed fallen souls who never received a decent burial. To remember and even honor bodies of our dead soldiers is not against Christian principles. In fact, not to honor them is wrong, both in our culture and in our various religious traditions. Good examples. In the New Testament, friends moved Jesus' body from the cross to a grave somewhere in the garden, giving him a decent burial. Joseph, a rich Jew, contributed costly materials to give Jesus a decent burial. In the Old Testament, Joseph's bones were carried all the way from Egypt to Shechem, out of Egypt, for burial when Israel was liberated. Christians who understand the Bible agree with me that giving our loved ones a decent burial is our moral obligation. Nicodemus, a rabbi, and Joseph Arimathea, a wealthy Jew, saw it fit to give the body of Jesus a decent burial. Since Jesus, the Savior, who is a spiritual liberator, deserved decent burial, have we afforded our sons and daughters, our political liberators, a decent burial? I'm not talking about the Heroes' Day. I'm talking about a decent burial. Our political leaders must understand and even deal with the spirituality and physicality of our present reality. In a country so blessed with minerals, there's no excuse for abject poverty. People are dying because they cannot afford prescriptions. Others are dying because there is not enough medical personnel in the clinics and or hospitals. It was very painful to hear that a physician on duty died in Ahuna, Wode Valley, because there was no fuel to airlift him to Mutare General Hospital. Really, no fuel. Sometimes I feel that we are failing to unite as a nation because our bones are not together. I say maybe, but indubitably, I know that replacing spiritual values with corruption, lawlessness, disrespect, and immorality has created a politically toxic environment. Some of us are wondering, where did we go wrong? Why is it that those who virtually fought the war, carrying the gun, are still fighting poverty 43 years into independence. Why is it that during the white minority rule, we cried for freedom? Today, we are still crying for freedom. The answer to all these and other rhetorical questions is there is a lack of national unity, lack of equality, and a lack of respect for humanity. Needed are political leaders who show not only self-respect, but respect for elders, even when holding different ideologies. For a bottle of super or a tumbler, leaders send their youth to beat up, if not murder, any person holding a different political ideology. This calls for national healing. And only can this happen when there is national unity. Our nation is hungering for leadership that not only displays but insists upon core values of democracy, including human rights and unity. That mindset would contribute immensely toward national unity. National unity happens only when we purposely rise above our political and personal differences. National unity facilitates necessary compromises for the sake of agreed upon national priorities, including urban and rural development, peace, economic stability, and growth. The spirit of national unity will promote national confidence in government. Our nation can utilize all these. By the way, the absence of this spirit breeds discontentment. For example, the current budget for 2024 year being discussed sends a very negative message to most people. It has been described by Mr. Beatty as simply irrelevant to the Zimbabwe situation. If an unemployed couple inherits $500,000 property, or a pensionless widow remains in a home paying rates, all right, but how can one pay these exorbitant taxes that the Minister of Finance is demanding? Yes, collecting taxes is your job, Mr. Minister. So is infrastructure development. The spirit of national unity cannot coexist with self-aggrandizement, narcissism, and a lack of concern for the ordinary people. Politicians who are in the political arena for themselves will not save the nation. Rather, they destroy it by misleading the youth who are trying to make ends meet. Those who are committed to serve the people demonstrate their mission by practicing clear democratic principles in their party structures, daily deliberations within the party, and are transparent and accountable to the people. Your party is your laboratory of how you will run the government. Show us you can run your party, and your people will show you the way to the State House. If charity begins at home, did you ever wonder why our former and late President Robert G. Mugabe a famous orator of liberation, was deposed by his own party at home, leaving the country in economic shambles. Now we have a new dispensation where President Emerson D. Mnangagwa has an opportunity to facilitate, 1, national morality, 2, the fostering of national reconciliation, and 3, the creating of a political atmosphere that is conducive to revamping the economy. None of these will happen without first planting the spirit of national unity, which we are advocating here today. It is reasonable to assume that most Zimbabweans want purposeful unity. Thus, unity is so vital for national prosperity that it is worth investing our time, our effort, and our intelligence in it. Today, we applaud the Zimbabwean masses in general because they seem united in their respective political parties, even though their leadership in various parties seem not united toward a common national agenda and national priorities. Parties split because of personality and personal material gains. At this point, membership has no choice but to follow. But today we describe this situation as sheep without a shepherd. Today we want to subscribe that the remedy to all this is the spirit of national unity. The saying is true: united we stand, divided we fall. To reiterate, my fellow Zimbabweans, we are one nation. Wisdom dictates that we unite for national prosperity, development, and peace. Without dwelling in the past, we all know that to gain our independence, leadership had to unite in order to effect the change they all desired. Dr. Nkomo, Lord Carrington of UK, Mr. Mugabe, and Bishop Muzorewa had to put their differences aside in order to unite for a common good. The spirit of unity has more power than the gun. The spirit of unity has more power than intimidation or propaganda or empty promises. So unity is the key, and everything else follows. Today I humbly present to you, fellow Zimbabweans, the following values and advantages of national unity for your consideration. 1. National unity will lay a firm foundation for good governance, including budgetary policies that prioritize the health, education, and housing for our citizens. Working collaboratively, we can effectively manage any situation, any crisis. 2, national unity will create an environment and a matrix for national reconciliation and a true peace. 3, national unity will provide the nation with a natural habitat for all civil liberties. This could drive away economic sanctions which have been used as a political whip by our detractors. 4, national unity will make Zimbabwe one of the world's leading tourist destinations, as well as a safe country for investors. the present emigration trend will reverse itself. National unity will destroy the polarization that has divided our nation. Polarization is antithetical to national stability and development. National unity will destroy hate language, eliminate abductions, or even assassinations. The recent Mavuku Tafara horrendous incident should never characterize our nation. Acts of violence and political intimidation have no place in our society. We call on relative authorities to ensure that justice is served and those responsible are held accountable. The UANC recognizes the importance of fostering a culture of peace, unity, and respect for human rights. National unity will destroy a sense of insecurity since our trained security forces will enforce and assure every citizen's security, including many government officials who suffer from a serious sense of insecurity. Most of them, we are told, don't sleep in their beautiful homes because they feel insecure. Ladies and gentlemen, we can do it as soon as our leaders manage their egos and resolve to serve the nation. Zimbabwe does not have to be a litigious nation. Let freedom reign. Follow the leaders. There are leaders who have led us from the beginning, who have led us to our independence. They set a good example, some of them. But now is our time. So if I ask you, what time is it? You have the answer. With everything that has happened this 2023, now is the time for our lawmakers to initiate laws that create a conducive atmosphere for local and international investors. Now is the time for political leaders and other stakeholders to make compromises and work together to effectively address national priorities, including healthcare, ending corruption, and economic hardships. Now is the time to pursue the security and well-being for all citizens across political and tribal divides. Now is the time for government and all innovative civilians to create and implement national policies and programs that promote the well-being of the nation. A demotivated workforce cannot be expected to perform at its best, and that hinders productivity and economic growth. Our esteemed honorables, attending to these urgent issues is more important, for example, than passing a marriage act or recalling lawmakers for reasons that do not change the nation's economic trajectory. It is time for productivity and positivity, not pessimism. Today we appeal to all stakeholders, the ruling party included, to collectively unite in an effort to mitigate political and social factors that are hindering economic prosperity and national well-being. United, we can do anything we want as a nation, provided it is in the interest of the nation. In conclusion, in pursuit of national unity, making compromises is a major component of democracy. By prioritizing the needs of the people, we automatically concretize the value of national unity. Thus, in order to solve the nation's deep-rooted issues, it is necessary to adopt an inclusive approach. After all, in a democratic state, inclusiveness often produces genuine peace and unity. In mature political parties such as the UANC, there is no secret recipe or strategy for good governance. Enforcing the rule of law, constitutionality, accountability, and transparency are conventional and have been verified many times over. So, suggesting an alternative to the current status quo is not even a revolution, but rather a revelation of political leadership that brings an alternative to what is trite. For example, the UANC believes in the power of entrepreneurship and innovation to drive our economy forward. And as a nation, we can work diligently to create such an enabling environment for business to thrive. We uphold the principles of democracy when the spirit of unity, pragmatism, and political compromise binds us together. Because we believe in you, Zimbabweans, we know that Zimbabwe's overall economic structure will change for the better. Zimbabwe will improve and our nation will shine brighter than the morning star. Thank you for giving a thought to the good that could come from national unity. Thank you. Now, with your permission, I just want to share a few comments, just 2 or 3 comments on the budget, 2024 budget. I say this to the minister. Mr. Honorable Minister of Finance, you always choose to propose the budget in RTGS so that we talk in terms of millions, billions, and even trillions. Yet, you know fully well that that currency is transient due to inevitable inflation. I wish you could use a stable currency with, say, 10% estimated inflation. It shows that you are being realistic and you are being honest to us. But using figures that will not carry even 2 months from today is not being honest to the nation. And so, going forward, since you collect money in US dollars, why don't you give us the budget figures in US dollars? Thank you. Another point I have for you, Mr. Honorable Minister, is that when you increase taxes, for example, the toll gate tax, from $2 to $5, don't you see that you apparently sabotaging the nation's economy by cutting off half the people who are supposed to use the road? Because if as an ordinary person, I struggle to pay $2. If we had added one more dollar to make it $3, I would appreciate. But for you to double it plus one is to say, get off the road. I think as a Minister of Finance, we have to be realistic. This is why, again, we agree with those who say this budget is not relevant to Zimbabwe. Finally, Mr. Minister, we know that raising taxes is your job, but we also know that fixing the roads, fixing the falling apart infrastructure of this nation, you enough rope to show us that the nation, but you are serving the nation. Thank you. Your budget will not go very far because your vision is myopic. Thank you.
Thank you, President Mzorewa. And now it's time for questions.
What exactly, what kind of unit are you talking, are you advocating for?
Harry, I made that statement clear. The unity that we're talking about is more like commitment to the development of this country in spite of all the hardships. The spirit of unity that we are looking for is one that respects all differences in the country, but say in spite of that, we are Zimbabweans and we will work together. You know, the human body is a good example of unity. They are different, there are arms, there are legs, there are eyes, there are ears. And we certainly have to be committed to the well-being of the whole as a nation.
Maybe,
Yes.
maybe a follow-up question is, do you see a possibility for such kind of a unity in Zimbabwe, looking at the ZANU-PF, the way they are?
We are not like them, then we are enemies. See, those are the things, the notions we want to, doesn't mean we are enemies. It shocks me when I hear that slogan that I cannot even repeat it. When they say this and that and then the other one is not an enemy. It's just different. It's an alternative. When this one runs out of steam, they don't have, people go for an alternative. So in Zimbabwe, we're talking of unity in the sense that, yes, let's acknowledge our differences, but yes, let's also commit ourselves to national development. We should work together for Zimbabwe's common good.
Yes. You are speaking of unity. Yeah, I just want to find out from you your comment with regards to the recalls that happen when you see a fragmented opposition.
When those recalls happened, I was very saddened because I just knew that it was going to reduce the number of members of parliament who were duly elected by the people. So whatever the reason for the recalls, my concern is that someone should have a bigger picture here. Should you cut your finger off because the nail is tall, is too long? No. I mean, these recalls are really intended to limit the power of quote-unquote the opposition party. But we are told that they are implemented by people who belong to the same party. That's why in my speech, in my statement, I spend most of the time talking about how the leadership is the problem. It's not the followers, it's the leadership which is the problem. So we need leadership that is informed, leadership that is committed to national development, leadership that is prepared to compromise for the sake of the whole, the greater good. Leadership that is not self-centered, leadership that is inclusive, leadership that acknowledges situations when they happen. So recalls were, you know what, it's almost like a disease in way back in MDC, there was a recall of about over 21 MPs from the opposition. That would reduce their power in parliament. Here we go again. Recalls of opposition people who are supposed to bring in new laws and reforms, but there's a recall, and so that reduces their power in parliament. So I said to myself, don't we get it? Don't we get it? Why don't we get it? So I'll tell you that in the UANC we have a clear constitution. And one thing that we will not do is this business of working with people who are not committed to what the party is about. When the UANC, it's not a campaign speech, but when the UANC is in power, you are going to see a good example of what power is, what real power is. Real power is not fighting, is not victimizing, but is serving the nation. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I also want to ask you on the same issue of unity you were talking about. In the 2018 elections, there were 22 presidential candidates. In the previous one, in 2023, there were over 10. So, is that picture portraying a candidate that is ready for unity, or it tells you that the candidate is far from being ready for unity, because everyone wants to run on his own or on her own?
Yeah. Well, if you probably heard my remarks at the time. I said that hiking the presidential fees, for example, was intended to reduce the number of presidential candidates. But I said, but in a real sense, are we saying if you have $20,000, then you are worth to be a leader? Because I could sell 20 cows and make $20,000 when I'm just a goat herder. I'm not ready to lead the nation. But you see that they use that as, it doesn't make, there are so many things, my friend, that happen in this country which force me to aspire for the office of president in order to give a better example, in order to give an alternative to what leadership ought to be. Because today, there are so many things that I would do differently. That's why, by the way, I don't call the UANC an opposition party. I call the UANC an alternative party. Because once we get in, we're going to show the nation how leadership can manage this country in a different way, without victimizing anybody, without without all this corruption and all that and all that. So that's why I'm in the race, hoping to give good leadership. I would never have run for councillor's office or MP's office, because it doesn't make a difference. But when I'm the president, I'm going to turn the key. That's where I am, and that's what's going to happen. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have come to the end of today's press conference. Thank you so much for your time.